So, while we are seeing Bitcoin has sort of thrown a lot of predictions off to the side, which is sort of what Bitcoin does. It has been pretty interesting as we've seen many predictions were already expecting to see Bitcoin below 9,000 right now. And I think that we're still headed in that direction. To cut to the chase, but I believe that the BitMEX news and a lot of the other economic things that have been happening have definitely gone a long way to in at least this local time frame that we're seeing. We've pretty much seen sort of the capitulation delayed slightly, but I'm still fairly confident that we'll see the bearish trend continue to exert itself. Especially, I mean, you consider the fact that in June 19th, we saw as far as this, from this run, the local high, all these other things. Around 14K was, we topped out at 14K, and then of course rejection again at the 12K mark, and then of course all these different highs I actually have marked in the chart, and of course testing that resistance again. We've only got as high as the $13,000 200 mark. Now, what does this actually mean? Well, I mean, I take into consideration the fact that from 13,000 all the way down to the plummet down to 9,085, which of course is the bottom of this trend. In as far, and we found a similar bottom to that recently when that day when Bitcoin was at 9,500, and of course it's interesting. Commenter says we're in the accumulation phase, stuck between 9,600 and 10,600. If anything, futures gap at 8,500 will fill. I think that I've seen that meme over and over again of people talking about the $8,500, and I think that that's fairly reasonable. I don't think we'll actually drop as low down as 8,500, but I do believe that we are at a pretty critical stage right now. The price has been bouncing around that 10,000 to 9,900 mark for quite some time right now, which I would imagine would lead some people to believe that we could in fact be out of the woods. Of course, but I don't want to crush anybody's moon boy dreams. But I do want you guys to take into consideration the crypto fear greed index, which is only slightly reliable, but at the same time, it is definitely pretty interesting. As far as we saw the entire market go into a frenzy. I think that for the most part, people have lost a lot of faith. As we've been rejected at that 12,000, and now we're seeking to put in higher lows, lower highs, and I believe that pattern will continue. As some YouTubers would say, into the crypto abyss, like I said, I personally, in a more local time frame, now I'm talking about a month or so, I would say that we'll probably put in a new low, which I would expect to be around the 8,000. I would expect it to be somewhere above the 8,500 mark, but I expect this downtrend to continue quite some time, perhaps even into 2021. I think that the market makers are well aware of the economic situation, and they don't want Bitcoin to be seen as the safe haven that it has the potential of being. Now, I know this is I laugh when we fall 1G and people get all sad. It's like New England weather. You don't like it. Wait a minute. Yeah, that is funny. So I mean, there's essentially two options that people have right now. They could wait for a lower buy-in, sell now and then buy in at a lower price, or essentially wait out the storm and perhaps just don't get psyched out when you see the price dropping hundreds of USD. In the time of making this video, we pretty much already watched the price drop the $50. I mean, it's been trampolining up and down that 10,000 to 10,000. Yesterday, I believe the low was exactly 10K, and now, of course, we're up that $500 from that point. Putting in that reasonable high in that same context, and of course, I would say that at this point, it's definitely a trader's market. I've been speaking with many of you who have been telling me that you've been racking in, just selling at the high and then buying at the low, and of the trend and following the trend lines, and essentially being able to pocket those small dips that we've been making, and of course it is risky business to do that. You've got to have nerves of steel essentially, and you've got to be able to only make trades, take another route, which would just be rather than waiting on the sidelines, dollar cost averaging. But if you have 10 Bitcoin, play with 5 at most. Do not sell all, earn, or stack sets. Personally, I think that right now, it's not as far as I'm concerned, I'm not putting new money into my Bitcoin. I'm not taking USD out of my bank and then putting it into Bitcoin, because I see the volatility as just as amped a possibility to accumulate that way. If you want to just use the, as far as my perspective is, I see the volatility, and anybody who can tell what's happening, in the short term, can pretty much get an idea of how we're going to witness the market play out in that long-term paradigm sort of perspective. So, there are a few interesting charts that I wanted to pay attention to that are on this TradeView website. So let's check them out. This one I found interesting by this person, and you'll see here, he pretty much marked a lot of the similar indicators that I have, and I found it interesting that he had it by August 19th. He expected us to be at somewhere around the 9,500. So, it is there's still far too many fat wallets. Remember, those who were more, we spread harder wallets. That's an interesting comment there as well. How's it going, Edward Park? Nice to have you in the chat. Paying close attention to that EMA 200, all the classical indicators. Anyways, let's check out some news. Social network Gab looks to decentralize it rapidly expands. This is interesting. I know many of you are have wanted me to talk about the future of social media platforms utilizing peer-to-peer, and I think Gab definitely is an interesting so Gab, a social media that prides itself on quote unquote free speech, has become a hotbed for far of course radicalism. And despite the controversy, however, the recently decentralized platform has thrived. Gab first entered the public discourse around 2018. Why is Gab relevant to the cryptocurrency space? Well, I'll tell you, it is definitely interesting to see how social media has leveraged the vast potential that's made available by cryptocurrency, and I think that it's really no secret that they would have a huge strong advantage over the old guard sort of past paradigm of the latter expand. Of course, like Facebook and so forth, they're essentially managing themselves into a decline. YouTube messing with their algorithms and abusing their creators to the point where the people are on these platforms because they're creatures of habit. It's very self-evident that there's something's got to give at this point, and it will be interesting to see, because the more that they attempt to strangulate, YouTube and Google and their parent companies and so forth, the more they attempt to strangulate their user base, the more they're going to be driving people into these further regions of the internet, and it'll definitely be interesting to see how that plays out alongside the cryptocurrency paradigm shift that we're seeing happening. So it will be very interesting to see how that manifests itself. We'll be keeping a close eye on that sort of news as well. Why Bitcoin's energy consumption is actually good for long-term global economic stability, according to recent blog post by Unchained Capital, a financial company which offers cash loans to long-term cryptocurrency holders, and long-term necessity and importance of Bitcoin's energy consumption outweighs its controversial climatic influences. So how Bitcoin consumes energy and just how much. I think that it is interesting. When people talk about the value of Bitcoin and how it kind of does have that interesting layer of value when it comes down to electricity and all these different things. But this Forbes article is interesting too, and it sort of does play into my overall sentiment when I was talking about my analysis of the market. Bitcoin and cryptocurrency traders and investors are nervously watching prices after market sentiment appears to turn for the worst, dropping to its lowest level since December 2018. The Bitcoin price has been hovering around $10,000 per Bitcoin for a week now, with many hoping Bitcoin was becoming a safe haven for turbulent markets. Bitcoin and crypto investors are worried, however, with the crypto fear and greed index showing extreme fear, and recently this week dropping to a 244-day low last seen when Bitcoin crashed to around $3,000. The fear index hit an all-time high in late June, and excitement around Facebook's plans for its Bitcoin rival reached fear pitch, but has since, of course, regulators signal their dissatisfaction with the social media giant. And I think that Libra has probably been not necessarily the best advertised. A lot of criticism towards Libra has probably had a negative influence on the crypto space, but that's a topic for another video. Of course, top performers, we've got Japan Continental Token, Hypercash, RIF token. So yeah, I suppose we'll see where things go from here on out. Will be interesting. Yes, BitConnect. That's always a funny meme. And right now, Bitcoin is going to disrupt gold, but it will also disrupt any volatile emerging market that doesn't put the welfare of its citizens first and foremost. That's an interesting tweet right there. So for the most part, definitely keep what I said in mind. Of course, remember, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm only here to share my perspective. Bitcoin will go 7K in weekly wave 2, then it can break the 20K high in wave 3 of weekly. If you want to send me a time frame for that, you're more than welcome to. Would be much obliged. My sentiment, I think we're pretty much working along similar lines of analysis. As far as the potential for capitulation, and I think right now we're sort of it's sort of the bulls have this last shot. Right now, I'd say at this price point where we're seeing it, the bulls have one last shot to try and maintain the price above the 10,000. And I believe if we drop below that critical level, we could see, and we probably will, watch the price drop rather dramatically, which I do believe, which is probably why a lot of people imagine that it could go as low as 8,500. It could go even lower. Just like you said, 7,000 isn't out of the question. Unless something comes out of the blue and we break out of where we currently are, and we establish a new high, then of course, it's a totally different ball game. I'll update you guys as we continue to move along. But the fact that we have not established any highs, above where we previously mentioned, the 14,000 high, and then another 13,000, a lower high. It is definitely something to keep in mind. Of course, walking on eggshells as we move forward. It's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out, and we'll be keeping you guys informed, aware of these developments as they continue to happen in the long term. And I think that it'll be very interesting to see. I think that, like I said, people who are selling now and then waiting to buy at a lower price are not doing it without any logic. And then of course there were people who wanted me to talk about when the volume was up on a lot of these exchanges. People were saying, all the moon boys were coming out and saying like, oh, get ready because this is there's going to be a big move. But I think that ultimately what we were witnessing happening is a lot of people doing exactly what I was saying. They were selling, and then they were waiting to buy back when the price gets lower and accumulate more Satoshis, because nobody wants to be waiting and watching the price go down and then having to just sit around without being able to do any trading. People want to be able to get that action, on the daily, which of course, who could blame them? Like I said, many people have been taking advantage of, taking advantage of these price swings, and it is in fact a trader's market right now with all this volatility. So, we will see how things continue to develop from this point moving forward, and I hope you guys have enjoyed my analysis. Paying very close attention to the market right now, and I'm ready to pounce on it if need be. But yeah, hope you guys have enjoyed this content. I'll see you guys in the next live stream. Have a good one.